Is it on again? No? Is it back on?
Right, it should be back on now.
Are we on?
Not yet. Yeah, it's working. It's back on and there's nothing on the middle of the screen now.
Excellent. So if I do this, can everyone see?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Am I ready to go?
I think we are,
I've
yeah.
gone
Oh,
together.
Badass is in.
Who?
Your moderator.
Are we good? You want me to?
Yeah, we're good.
So, guys, what do we all think about this E. coli that's been released? I, for one, think it's very, very suspicious. When you double this up with the bird flu, with the water infections, what are we all thinking? I was going to do a video on this today. I think I may do it. What time is it? It's close to 9 o'clock. So I may do that tomorrow. But for those of you who've been following our other platform, I did a top 10. Basically, well, not top 10, but I did 10 civilian targets, basically. You know, that would be basically, you know, sabotage targets, things that are not specifically military, that are soft targets, that are really easy to have an effect, and they have really big implications on, you know, on people. So this was one of, you know, I mean, it's pretty much hits all of them. I think we've got literally like about 4 of them. You've got the water supply, you've got the food supply, you've got, you know, with the food supply, you've got the food supply as in the food chain that's being grown in farmers' fields, in, you know, in agriculture. And you've also got the food supply as it was here, commercial food supply that can be, you know, easily contaminated. Now, again, I'm not saying that this has got anything, you know, to do with anything like that. But what I am saying is I did identify these food supplies, water supplies, yeah, as one of our you know, areas for a highlighted area of weakness, you know. And it's just really interesting right now at the moment. We've got so many you know, we've got so many different like things going off in the UK. I mean, where do we go with this, and how many more are coming? What do we think? Let me just try and find it in here, guys, because I have wrote it down somewhere. Ah, here we are, guys. Yeah, so I've got it here. Wow. Okay, it's in a different colour pen. That's why I couldn't find it. What are we at? Yeah, so I'll just run through them now, guys, quickly. These are my... I did do them top 10 as well. So these are my top 10 civilian targets. You know, and we even saw a cyber attack that was blamed on Russian criminal gangs. You know, so let me just run through them quickly, and then we'll come back and talk about each one. So number 10, I said, remember, guys, okay, these are civilian targets I feel are vulnerable in the UK if we move into a time of conflict where, you know, we've got enemies, which, you know, Russia's started to call us an enemy already. Russia started to arm our enemies against us. So you see these, you know, these things moving together now. So the top 10 targets, civilian targets. I'm not counting military. I'm not counting sabotage. I'm not counting any of these, you know, sophisticated things. Because remember, nobody's going to send their best, you know, guy in a tuxedo with his fancy watch on to come and do some chopping and planting exciting things. They're going to pay criminal gangs. And through each one of these 10 items, guys, just think how easy it would be for a hostile nation to attack it, and the, you know, and the implications if it was attacked. So first of all, I've got increased crime. Very easy for a hostile nation to say, right, increased crime, increased public order, you know, just a basic rise in crime, you know, and you would see that naturally in a time of conflict, when people are protesting the war, when people are not wanting this, when they're not wanting that, when people are protesting conscription and all that sort of stuff. Interestingly enough, did you see the German report that came out? It was really funny, actually. The German report came out on how their country is going to react in a time of war. At the same time, they're wanting to mobilise 900,000 reservists. Just totally random, we're just doing it now. It's never good, is it, when the Germans mass a big army? I'm just saying historically, guys, I've got nothing against the Germans. I'm just saying historically, it's never a good thing when the Germans get a big army.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, so the Germans have come out and they've said, basically, they've said, you're on your own, all right? They've not gone with this 3-day thing that the UK are doing. They're literally telling people to stockpile goods left, right and centre. So that's the reality of the ground in Germany. And guys, those of you who've been watching my videos on this platform and our other one, the price of everything is just rocketing. So you need to get it now before it becomes before you can't get it. Anyway, guys, I'm digressing. I know you want the top 10. Number 10, public increased crime in cities. Number 9, I've got fire and arson. You know, I mean, there's rumours about the Notre Dame Cathedral when that got set on fire. There's rumours about that was done by criminal gangs.
Something happened to an IKEA as well, didn't it? In Poland.
Well, recently. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. You know, recently in the UK, you've got the storage facility that went up in flames. You've got a lot of countryside. You've got a lot of historic buildings. You've got, you know, basically anything that burns can be set on fire, and that will never, you know, and that'll never be put down to terrorism or a state-sponsored, you know, or a state-sponsored event. But if you're going to do these events as a state sponsor, it'd make perfect sense to go and set fire to a woodland, wait till all the emergency services are at the woodland trying to put the fire out, and then do your main event in the city once all the emergency services are committed elsewhere. These, I mean, how much does it cost for a box of matches? These things are cheap and they're easy.
Yeah, Lynn Rambleton just put a few arson attacks in Poland.
Yeah, and they're really, and it's, guys, remember, Poland is rife for Russian Tatushkas operating there. You know, they're all over the place in Poland. It's really easy to move freely within Europe. Luckily, the UK, we live on a fortress island, and it's a little bit harder to get in. You have to have your passport scanned.
Thank you,
know.
Goddess.
But yeah, so fire. So 10, increased crime. 9, fire. 8, I've got local government. So look at your local government. Wherever you are in the UK, think about your local government. Sorry, your council. Sorry, local government would be Americans. So think about your local council now in the UK. Think about the last 4 years and how they operated in times of stress, in times of adversity. All right? Now, double this up with, would they take a bribe? Would, you know, a councillor who's responsible for keys for a certain area, who's responsible for some sort of critical infrastructure, would it be possible to give him a couple of grand and say, hey mate, just leave that door open, here's a grand? Of course it would. You know, these councillors are not vetted. You know, normally, guys, whatever you think about your local council, I can only talk about mine, Rotherham Council, and it's quite possibly the worst organisation I've ever had the displeasure of dealing with. You get incompetence at every level. And that's just because they get paid regardless. So you have to pay your council tax every month. If you don't, you get fined. So they don't have to put on a good service. They just take your money and do what they want. Anyway, guys, so, you know, yeah, so you've got bribes, you've got lack of awareness, you've got the Karen factor, and you've got the lack of competence. So all these things, you know, they're an easy target for, you know, these foreign actors. Imagine like some Russian who studied psychology all his life. He's going to have a field day being able to manipulate and turn these people at local council level, especially if your local council is near some sort of critical infrastructure. That's when it becomes really dangerous. So number 8, local government. What have we got? Yeah. So number 7, this is kind of a specific one, and so number 7, I've got cell towers, mobile phone towers. Think about the mobile phone towers that are around the country. You know, these are pieces, you know, in today, they are critical infrastructure, because the reality is, how many times do you use a landline in your house? We don't use landlines anymore. So we are dependent now on these mobile phone towers. Now, if these mobile phone towers get sabotaged, if they get jammed, whatever, you know, that's going to go down. Now, it's not going to really make much difference to the military because they'll run off, they've got their own communication systems. But communications, your phone's going to go down. Your GPRS is going to go down because your mobile phones don't work on GPS, they work on GPRS, which is basically, it works the same as GPS, but instead of bouncing a signal to satellites, it bounces a signal to the cell towers, so it can tell exactly where you are. So all your mapping's not going to work, which means transport apps are not going to work, delivery's not going to work, you know, taxis, all this sort of stuff, you know, your Royal Mail, you know what I mean, guys, you know, all that sort of stuff's just going to stop, and that's going to put added stress on the system. It's going to put added stress on everything, and this is what, you know, these hostile nations are trying to do. They're trying to put added stress onto our nation with minimum effort and minimum funding. So that's my number 7, guys, mobile phone towers, and that kind of goes into communications. So number 6, I've got emergency services. I'm excluding police on here, and I'm just talking about basically fire and ambulance here. So your fire and ambulance crews, think about where they are. Your hospitals, your fire depots, they're not heavily guarded. You know, the engines, the fire engines, the ambulances, you could go up there and you could sabotage those vehicles very easy, and that's going to then put stress onto everything else. Criminal gangs are not going to try this with the police. The risk's too high. The risk versus reward's not there for them. But, you know, ambulances, nobody, you know, we as a country, we don't attack ambulances. Why would you? We don't attack fire services. Why would you? But as we move forwards, do we have in this country, I don't know, 31,000 people who have vanished off records and who came here illegally? I don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We do. You know, so those people could be paid, you know, to do these acts of sabotage, to do these acts of, you know, whatever you want to call it. But again, it's all about putting stress on our system. It's all about stressing the system, you know, and diverting resources. So number 5, I've got schools, doctors' clinics. We can put hospitals in there as well.
Just recap what countdown is.
Recap. Right, guys, for those of you who've just joined us, I'm giving you my top 10 civilian targets if we become in a conflict. And you know what, guys? You can argue that some of these targets are being hit already. So we've got number 10, increasing crime, big cities, areas of big population, increasing crime. We've got number 9, fire, arson attacks. You see these every summer, you know, and it just, oh, we've just got a woodland, you know, gone on fire, another woodland gone on fire. We've got local government that are susceptible to bribes, you know, they've got lack of competence, lack of awareness. And also in local government, you have got the Karen factor, that is the biggest Karen factor I've ever seen. Number 7, I've got mobile phone towers, which doubles up as communications towers. Number 6, we've got emergency services, barring police, because doing an attack on police is not, the risk isn't worth the reward, because the police can arrest you straight away. A fire engine, fire crew, ambulances, they can't arrest you, they don't have powers of arrest. So that's why you wouldn't go and target the police.
Lewis has just put a major university as a possible target.
Yeah, and well, yeah, literally, I've got here. So number 5, schools, any educational facility. You've doctors, which doubles up as hospitals, clinics.
I mean, as a parent, that's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, these are soft targets, and again, you know.
Karen, what is the Karen factor? My name is Karen.
It's horrible if you're called Karen, isn't it? So the Karen factor is, Sarah, do you want to explain the Karen factor?
No, go on over to your
okay,
show.
right. Okay, how do you explain the Karen factor? Well, you know, in pop culture in the United Kingdom, a Karen is a woman who is always complaining about something and always. But
we don't mean you, Karen Bryan 873.
But not you, Karen Bryan 873. Not you. You are the best looking and the most fantastic Karen that I know. So yeah, so schools, doctors, clinics, hospitals, pharmacies. you know, medical stuff, you know, educational stuff. I've bundled up.
Yeah, Anna. Let me just read this out. Anna's put, can I ask Sean, as he knows a lot about survival, what are his thoughts on Dr. Michael Mosley are?
Well, I think he was doing the Raven dance. He got really excited because he was doing the Raven dance and he fell over. I don't really know. I've not been watching it that much. It's not something I understand 100%. But as I understand, he took a wrong turning on a track. He's not that, you know, he's of limited experience. So, you know, I think he's obviously gone the wrong way on his trek. I don't know if he'll be found. I don't particularly think anything suspicious is happening with that. You know, I don't think anything particularly suspicious. I don't think anything particularly suspicious is that was a tongue twister. Is happening there. I think it's just going to be a case of you know, he's gone the wrong way. He could have fell over, injured himself, you know, and then whatever's happened. I had a friend when I was in the army. He went out running on Brecon Beacons. He was running in the fog. He was a lovely guy. He was out running. It was foggy. He fell over. He actually fell off a cliff, and he died. Absolutely tragic, you know. So these things do happen. I remember the guy actually. He was a really good guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but in Kenya, I was in Kenya, and he was the medic. I fell asleep with this hand on the ground, and I got 54 bite marks on my hand there. And I remember he really went out of his way. I mean, we was in the middle of Kenya. We was like 100 miles from anywhere. He really went out of his way to get me some Urax cream, which stops things itching. So I'll always remember him. It's quite sad that that happened. But anyway, yeah. So it does happen, guys. You know, unfortunate accidents do happen. So schools, doctors, clinics, you know, go on.
Sorry, they're pinning a few questions here. I've missed a couple. So Jolene Addicts put, any update on the French troops entering Ukraine?
Yeah, so I got this, guys, from, you know, a source I trusted, and we said this was going to be announced on Thursday. They announced on Thursday that they would be giving a load of aircraft, and they would be training troops, and they would be training pilots also. They've not gone as far as to say where they're going to be training these troops. It's already a done deal, guys, all right? Behind closed doors, it's already a done deal. You know, I think they're just waiting for the right time to release this. You know, as soon as these things come out in the press, as soon as they start talking about them, like there's, you know, and there's rumours, it happens. Remember the F-16s? Oh, we'll never give them F-16s. Remember the Germans giving helmets and body armour. Germany is now the biggest, financially, Germany is the biggest donator to Ukraine. So as soon as these things come out in the rumour mill, you can kind of understand why they're, you know, it's going to happen at some point. Remember the timings we're looking for, guys, with this war, what we said, if we go from the Andrew Bridgen interview, which I think we should, war will be, this war is going to be declared proper July, August, maybe a little bit later. For me, I think it would make perfect sense to do this on the summer holidays when everybody goes home on leave. It's harder to get people back. It's harder to do scrutiny on things. And I think that's just when it'll happen, guys, all right?
Alex R's just put, my daughter's just had a lockdown practice in her secondary school.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible that this is happening in this day and age. Near where we live in Doncaster, there was a news article about migrants going into the school and sitting down and talking to the children. Now, you know, some liberals will say, oh, what's wrong with that? You know, they're just talking to the children. I'm kind of on the thought that, one, as a grown man, why would you want to go into a school and sit down and talk with children? It's a bit weird. And also, once we dug into this a little bit deeper, it didn't really come on mainstream media, but there was a load of migrants, and they're going up to the back gates in the woods, and the parents of the children are having to patrol around the school at dinner time. What kind of world are we living in? Now, me and Sarah were talking about this, and I said, it's a very slippery slope, because can you imagine if one of the parents does, you know, get into an altercation with one of these migrants? What are the migrants doing wrong? They're doing nothing wrong. There's no law that says You can't go and stand up against a school gate while, at playtime. For every human being in in the Western culture, it's just ridiculous. Why would you do that? It's just wrong. But there's no law against it. So that parent then is held liable. So then what's the parent doing? So then the parent, then the media will get hold of that, and it's like, right-wing parent attacks. You see where I'm going with this, guys, okay?
Yeah, mods ping questions and I'll keep looking down and answer them.
Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, guys. Number five, schools, clinics, okay? They're soft targets, you've got vandalism. What they're wanting to do with these things, they're wanting people to stay away from them. Puts added stress on the system, it just puts added stress on everything, A school gets threatened, the police go out. Doctors, clinics, pharmacies, all this sort of stuff. It's just to put added stress on the system.
736717.
Okay. Number 4, guys, we're getting juicy now. Gas and electric. Gas and electric, guys, all right? I kind of had to put these together, although you could argue these are separate things themselves. I think electricity is more of a risk than gas, especially in Europe. Europe, the electricity grid, especially when you're looking at, countries with a different infrastructure to the UK, like Poland, Germany, France, their electricity grid is a lot more vulnerable than ours, only because of proximity. Now, let's go with electric first. So your electric substations, how many substations are guarded? None. Your electric cables and your transistors, how many of those are protected? None. Go on.
I've just got one comments from Lorraine. What's Sean's opinion on the rise of historical illnesses due to the rise in immigration?
Well, we're importing a lot of this stuff, and when people... Okay, so if you go to So when I used to work in Baghdad, I used to have all my injections before I went. I used to have a blood test at the airport. That blood test would then get on, go to be checked to make sure I was, fit and healthy, So these were all the checks I had to have when I went to Baghdad, when I worked in Baghdad for the embassy. If you come over here on a boat, you don't get any of that. There's no checks. You just go straight into a hotel. So, you can draw the correlation of the increase, but the reality is we don't know, do we? We don't know what these people, we don't know what diseases, what viruses are coming into our country, and that's the reality. That's the sad reality of the situation. We don't know what they're doing in the public. We don't know who they're mixing with, and that's the reality. And sadly, that is the reality of where we live today.
Brad has just put, Russia just sold out shirts saying, if you're going to fight, throw the first punch.
What, like today?
I'm not sure, it's just what...
Is that today?
Pinned.
Those pesky Russians? Try and get an answer if that's today, because I've not seen that.
Yeah.
If that's today, guys, I've not seen that, but, we can comment. Anyway, guys, electricity, basically gas and electricity. These cables, these, gas pipes...
Yesterday.
Really, really vulnerable. How difficult would it be for some criminal gangs to say, right, we're going to have a mass, criminal attack on electricity substations, on gas stations, whatever it is, you can go get a still saw and do a lot of damage. So, that's the reality of this situation, and once the electricity goes down, it's very difficult to start replacing these parts. A lot of these parts are not produced anymore, so you have to replace the whole system. There was where we live, there's like some pipes that always go every year, and they can't just, it's very difficult for them to replace a tiny piece of this pipe because they don't get the pipe, they don't make the pipe anymore, so they have to replace the whole system, and it's just really difficult to replace this stuff.
Chris has put UK Special Forces operating inside Russia, ?
I doubt it very much, but it depends what you mean inside Russia. So again, I have no prior knowledge to this, only what's out on mainstream media and my own speculation. What I'd say is why. I'd say they would be. I'd say. I mean, it's all out in mainstream media that they're operating in Ukraine. What I would say is they may be operating in the old Ukrainian territory that's claimed as Russian territory. But again, I struggle to see what they would be doing out there. There's plenty of capable Ukrainians who speak Russian, who know the culture, who use the same weapons. It'd be very. Can you imagine if if a British guy got captured in one of these disputed areas and he's like, "Hello guys, mind if I speak the Quick Kings?" Or then you've got some Ukrainians that are captured and they're "Dalanda chuvak, skolka." They speak the language. So I'm not saying it's no, I don't know. I say it's very unlikely because there's plenty of capable Ukrainians who speak Russian, who can blend into the environment.
Buster's put, can you ask Sean if Hull would be a major target, especially with our ports and bridge? Yeah, the big Humber Bridge.
Well, Humber Bridge it's not really strategic, is it? For you've got to think what would be the utility of destroying Humber Bridge apart from stopping people get to Cleethorpes for a weekend at the seaside. There's no real utility. Obviously, if Humber Bridge went to I don't know, this is not going to be. If Humber Bridge went over to mainland Europe or something, that'd be a big strategic target. With Hull, I'd say the docks potentially, but I think Felixstowe would be the main one, and other docks that have military capability, like Faslane, Portsmouth, those sort of places would be bigger targets. But yeah, all docks, all airports would be a target at some point.
Thank you, Alara.
Gas and electric then, guys. Number 4. We're cracking through them now. So, number 3. Now, this is the important one. We're the top 3. So, number 3. I've just got food. Full stop. Now, this goes with, you've got farms, you've got fields, you've got transport, you've got imports, you've got supermarkets, all this sort of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that this E. coli thing has anything to do with sabotage. All I want to do is highlight how vulnerable the food system is. So, farms, how easy is it for you guys, to walk up to your local farm and just walk in there? Where there's cows, where there's pigs, where there's livestock. You can, at night time, you can literally walk in there where all these go on.
Lewis has put, if it went nuclear, the question is, will there be a limit of use?
A limit of, I think yesterday, it might have been yesterday, Putin's come out and he said, let's just kind of wind back. Nobody wants to use a nuclear weapon. Why? Well, there's 2 reasons. There's the public reason and then there's the real reason. So the public reason for nobody wanting to use nuclear weapons is because you will get something called mutually assured destruction, which basically on paper it says, right, if you fire nuclear weapons at us, we'll fire nuclear weapons at you and we'll destroy each other, which would be mutually assured destruction. The reality is, nobody wants to fire nuclear weapons at each other because a lot of nuclear weapons, guys, they just don't work. Look at Britain with our nuclear submarines when Grant Shapps was on the he was on the nuclear submarine and he's there with all the generals and the press are there like, right, Granty boy, we're gonna show these Ruskies what we've got. And the missile went, phew! It was a fail. So nobody wants to use a nuclear weapon in case it doesn't go off, because you kind of don't have any other cards to play then. Can you imagine if Putin attacked Britain with a load of nuclear weapons and none of them went off and they were just stuck in the ground with fins poking out? You say, oh, right, so you attacked us with nuclear weapons but they didn't work. All right. And then we're going to... So that, do you know what I mean? So that's the real reason why I feel nobody wants to use nuclear weapons. They decay over time, You can't just have them and, have it in a storage container. They decay over time. You know, these, you know, the fissionable material, it decays over time. That's kind of what it does. The rockets, all the sort of stuff that goes into making this work, it's a lot more complicated than it seems. Well, it is a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
you know.
Lewis has just wrote they need constant maintenance.
Yeah, they need. Yeah, exactly. Not only that, they need that the uranium what is it? It's polonium. I don't know what it is, guys. It's a certain isotope of uranium. But basically, they need to keep turning that over, and it needs to be perfect. And you know, you have to have like this. So you have to have an explosion inwards for a hydrogen bomb, which the explosion has to be perfect inwards to then make the bomb inside go off. So it's really complicated. And to get these things to work, it's okay getting them to work, you know, on a test ground where you've got all your scientists, you've got all your technicians, you've got your prototype that's been checked and tested and checked and tested. It's been carried perfectly. When you're talking about getting one of these nuclear weapons out the basement that have been there 30, 40, 50 years, you know, trying to make that work again, it's a big task. So although Russia say they've got, you know, about whatever, how many thousands of nuclear weapons, I'd say there's a good chance 80% of those won't even work. And the Russians know this. So that's why they're not going to want to fire them. I think what you will see, I'm pretty convinced in this, you'll see the use of low-yield tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield. The Americans in the day, they had they had their own tactics based around combat nuclear weapons. It was called the Honest John. Go check it out, guys. Go do a search on that when you've got time. Honest John missile system. And it was basically a small nuclear weapon that the CO of a battalion or maybe a brigade commander could have. So, you know, and that's how they thought they were going to fight a war in Europe. So that is, you know, so all this stuff's already been thought of. It's already there. I think the Americans realised pretty quickly that being able to keep and maintain these systems is a lot more hassle than it's worth when you can just pack an aircraft with a ton of explosives and it has the same effect. So what did we do last, guys? Gas and electric?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, we're on food now. So farms, field, transport, imports, you know, they're the kind of things that I highlighted. So really easy to get into a farm. Look at your livestock. So when your livestock's grazing, all sorts of stuff, you can get into that and you can do whatever to that livestock. Think about your fields now.
Thank you,
all sorts of fields in the UK. You can drive in everywhere. You know, this time of year you'll see the crops growing. Do you have access to those fields? Yes, of course you do. Everybody has access to those fields. Could somebody spray them with some sort of thing? Yeah, of course. Could hostile nations find where these are being processed and then potentially look at doing an attack there? Look at contaminating it somewhere? Yes, of course, and don't be under any illusion. These are, you know, these spies operate in the UK, and this is the type of thing that they'll be looking for. You know, nobody's going to arrest anyone for walking in a field. Absolutely not. You know, they're not going to send police to come and look in a field. Right, oh, you're walking in a field, you must be a Russian spy. No, of course not. So these are low-risk targets, and these low-risk targets, when you condense them, they become, you know, a high impact. What's the word I'm looking for? They become a high impact incident. So the transport of food as well. So think about the food chain in the UK. You have the farms, and again, it's weird in the UK. We have farms it's more profitable now for farmers to grow flowers. I don't know how that's a thing, but it is. You know, and as well, we're looking, guys. It's mad. It's as if somebody's made this happen. You know, right, farmers, stop growing food, grow flowers. Right, now we're going to have a food shortage. It's wild. But yeah, so you've got your farmers. They get their whatever. What are we going to go for? Wheat. Let's just say wheat. They get their wheat, they put it in the tractor, they then take it to wherever. At that point then, when it's being transported, it's vulnerable because it's all in a compact area. Why you could say, right, I'm not going to spray the whole field, I'm just going to wait till it's all in the back of the tractor or what the storage transport vessel, and I'm going to contaminate that. I think this has already been done to some degree in Poland, although I wouldn't be able to confirm that. And then look at imports, guys, all right? We already had the Finders, the Finders crispy pancake scandal where they were selling us horse meat because nobody checks this. Now, we've got this E. coli thing in the UK. And me and Sarah found out that there's been incidents last month, I think, in America with ground beef, which would be minced beef if you're British. Where did this beef go? Was it sent to the UK? Was it packaged and sold as fast food burgers?
Oh, Alex, do you think the government will open up the bunkers?
Well, I hope they come and open my bunker up because, honestly, my back is killing. No, I don't think government will open up bunkers for two reasons. Well, for one reason, cost. It will cost too much. Second of all, I don't think they're that effective. Second World War, you had bombing raids of conventional kinetic strikes. So you had lots of bombs dropping, big bombs, little bombs, all sorts of bombs, incendiary devices, all sorts, Now, with these Kinzhal missiles and nuclear weapons, the bunker's kind of not really gonna cut it if you get hit with if you get hit by a nuclear missile. What I spoke about this on when we were talking about our bunker. What you're better off doing would be, the threat then becomes from radiation. So the reality is, if you're in your basement, think of the distance from your roof to your basement.
Well, that's it. Ricky the Bricky's commented, how many bunkers do we have and how many do they hold? And obviously our population's a lot bigger than it used to be.
Yeah, so it would be too expensive. They wouldn't really be fit for purpose. And it would, too expensive, and they're not fit for purpose. If you're going to get hit by a nuclear missile, these bunkers are not fit for purpose. So you'd have to build deeper bunkers. I think in the 50s, what's the project? Right, guys, in the 50s, Britain did a project. I did a video on it. Britain did a project, and they came about, the feasibility of providing nuclear bunkers for everybody. And the study was, it's not worth it. If you're going to get hit by one of these nuclear missiles, it's game over. But the surrounding areas, they're going to get nuclear radiation. When the radiation falls, you just want as much distance between you and that radiation as possible. So for us, and if you guys have got a basement or a cellar, in that cellar would provide you more cover. I feel a better solution because of the distance you are from that radiation. Guys, everybody's situation is going to be different. Some cellars are going to be in a vulnerable spot. Some cellars are going to be in a better spot. Look at your own situation. But you need to have distance between you and that radiation. And over time, that'll just get washed away. I think 2 days and 90% of the radioactive material's gone. After 2 weeks, you can kick it about and it's pretty okay.
So many of us don't have basements, etc. Where in a 3-bedroomed house is the safest, and do you block out vents?
So you imagine that you just need to get as far away from radiation as you can. So that's normally in the centre, in the middle of your house, wherever that is. So if you're in a flat, you don't think about your flat, think about the block of flats. So if your doorway to that flat is closest to the central part of that flat or apartment block, then that's where you need to be. If you live in a house, it's probably going to be the middle of the house. If it's semi-detached, it's probably going to be closest to your neighbour. If that, I'm going with that, guys. If you live in a row of terraced houses, I'd say one of the gable ends. Where else do we live, guys? What else? What other houses have we got? I think I've covered everything. Also, what you can think about, though, is parking lots or car parks. they're designed to take a ton of weight, and they're made with a lot of concrete. So usually, well, sometimes they have underground parking. Most commercial areas have big underground parking. Market, service areas, that's usually underground, and it's usually got a lot of concrete around it. But these are things to do, to stop you from having a direct blast. The reality is, radiation, in the very unlikely event that the UK gets hit by a nuclear bomb, I don't think it's going to happen. That would be where you need to go.
What about a long train tunnel?
Yeah, a long train tunnel will be fine, as long as the wind's not blowing through it. So obviously the radiation gets picked up and it gets carried in the wind. The last thing you want to do is to be sat in this in this tunnel, and at one end, all the radiation's coming in, and you think you're like, oh yeah, but it's strong in here. But so if you can get in a train tunnel and you can stop the wind coming through from both ends, I'd say get right in the middle. In fact, I'm thinking now, if any of you guys live in Doncaster, there's a place called Sprotborough. That's got a lot of tunnels that you can. We take the kids walking there.
Do you think the UK will get hit by any bomb?
No. I think the Falklands would be hit by a bomb. I think if anywhere in the UK is going to be hit, the first place will be the Falkland Islands. Now, that's because the amount of oil that's just been discovered around the Falklands. Now, put this into context. The amount of oil that's been found just off the coast of the Falklands would be able to support the UK for 500 years. Guys, people don't really, it's hard to visualize how much money that is. Now, we already know Russia has dark fleets of oil tankers. We already know Venezuela have dark fleets of oil tankers. Iran, North Korea, they all operate a ton of illegal shipping vessels. They can't be policed. How can you police them? Who can police any vessel in international waters? You can't, and that's the reality. So I think if anywhere in the UK would be attacked, it would be the Falkland Islands, and that would be so Russia, Argentina could make a land grab on the Falkland Islands. By that, they would then take control of the British Antarctic territory, which is 1/8 of Antarctica, and we don't even know how much mineral content is in Antarctica yet. This is just what we found off the first survey.
Belaruski has put, are the UK heading for war then? As I have been told September, that's why there is an early election.
Yeah, so that's what it's funny, we did a video about this, and we said that Sunak doesn't want to be a wartime leader. I think it was 2 days later he announced this election, and that's the reality. So I'd say yes. I'd say July, August. Some people are saying September, but I think September would be I'd say September. And what you've got to think about is you've got to think about the human factor. Nobody is ever ready to go to war. Your generals, your colonels, they will always want more ammunition. They'll always want to do more training. So the army's never going to be ready. Your politicians, they're always going to be wanting to positioning themselves in different positions so they can. I'm not going to get into that, guys. I'm not going to be negative on our political class. But nobody's ever going to be ready. So the reality is, by September, I think it has to be called, because this has to be in lockstep again. Let's remember, this has to all be done before the US election. So yeah, I think September would be a fair assessment. Do we want the Raven dance? Right, guys, so yeah, we've covered food. Now, guys, I keep forgetting I'm doing my top 10. Let me just quickly go through them all, guys.
What is Canada's role in this?
Well, Canada, you're the vanguard for America. Don't forget, your proximity to Russia is ridiculous. You're literally just over the Arctic. The Russian shipping fleets are getting more and more, bold in that, up in that region. You guys are literally hand in hand with America. There's kind of no way around it. Well, like and follow. Guys, like and follow. If you've not done so already, give us a like, give us a follow. We keep you updated and tell you stuff before it happens.
Right, Lorraine, does Sean think 2 weeks of play is enough? Is that food, Lorraine, or...?
Yeah, I do, Lorraine. I don't... Right, okay, I've said things that seem contradictory, and they seem contradictory, but they're not. Sometimes I say the UK is having food shortages, and sometimes I say the UK is not going to run out of food. Two totally different things. The UK will and is already having food shortages. I don't think the UK is going to run out of food in the sense that, you know, we're all fighting over a bag of potatoes. I just don't see that. But what you're going to find, and you're finding it now, is, I mean, I was talking about every year round about this time we've got a certain amount of food in our basement cellar. You know, this time of year we just change it out. We go camping with the food we've got, and you know, we use it, and then we get new food in. And I know what some of you guys are saying, you should use it daily and rotate it through. I get that. But the reality is, it just works better for us if at this time of year we just do it in a block. Now, I think that because we do it that way, in a block, I notice the price of things, how much they've gone up. Now, we get, one of the things we get is a tin of stewed steak. I swear last year it was like £1.80 or something, and I was going like, oh my god, I can't believe this has gone up to £1.80.
Yeah, lady's saying here it's gone up to £3.50 a tin, the stew.
Yes, yes, it's ridiculous. The shop I saw it in was £3.25, but yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. So you can think two things from this. You can think people are either stocking up, which they should do, or there's supply shortages. I don't know which one it is, guys, but that's the reality on the ground. And I don't care what any political, statistics, whatever anyone says. I'm seeing this real life on the ground in the supermarket. The prices are ridiculous. Realistically, who pays that much for a tin of stewed steak? I mean, you know, I put it back because I was like, I just can't justify paying that. It's ridiculous. But, you know, the reality is I think we're going to have to go back and get it. But anyway. So, yeah.
Louis has put freeze-dried food.
Freeze-dried food is good, but it's expensive. It's got huge shelf life. Guys, freeze-dried food is your gold standard. You can't really get better than freeze-dried food. But it's really energy intense to create that freeze-dried food. Now,
what about tin food?
Yeah, do you really need to spend that much money on food? Tin food is just as good. It's going to last you a lot longer than the sell-by date. You know, and it is, guys, all right? Tin food's going to last a lot longer than the sell-by date. So it's everybody's personal situations are different. Your freeze-dried food, it's lighter, it lasts longer, but it's ridiculously more expensive. Even more expensive than stewed steak. But, you know, the reality is you can keep a lot of tins of food in your house. You can keep them, you know, practically anywhere. And,
what about medicines?
Yeah, medicines is a big one. You know, remember what I said earlier on about my hand when I got 54 bite marks on my hand. Guys, I can't tell you. I really can't tell you the pain I was going through. I was in the middle of the bush, middle of Kenya, you know, 54 bite marks on my hand. It wasn't like I could put my hand up and say, "Miss, can I stop this?" There was nobody there. And luckily I was in the military, I had a really good medic, and he really went out of his way. You know, he had to send a message to another guy on the radio. Guys, it was a huge task. But then, like 2 days later, I got this tub. Go on. What was on tub? What's the squirty thing, Sarah?
Spray?
No, it's like a toothpaste. A tube. A tube. I got a tube of this thing called Urax anti-itching cream. And honestly, when I put it on, I felt like crying. It was just such a relief. Now, can you imagine if you was in that situation and you couldn't get that? Could you imagine if your children was in that situation, you couldn't get that? Because don't forget, guys, when these things start to happen, you're going to get the Karen factor at the supermarkets. And you're going to get every man and his dog wanting to bulk buy everything. You're going to get the woman on the checkout counter She is all of a sudden going to be the world's leading expert on long life food. She's going to be the world's leading expert on water storage. You know, and you're going to be in the rat race then with everybody. Remember a couple of years ago, guys, when everybody had the mad toilet roll escapade and everybody was just buying random stuff. You're going to get that, but times 10. Honestly, guys, so just get whatever you can now. With the food, I always say, guys, all right, your food is an investment, all right? Look at the amount, look at the cost that this food's gone up. I think it's gone up more than gold in, you know, proportionally. You know,
food, pet food, medicines and water.
Yeah, stuff that you're going to need. Don't pay lip service to medicines and sting bites and little things that you can get off the shelves now that are in plentiful supply, that are cheap. Because what's that?
A showcase. We need to, if anybody wants.
Yeah, guys, we've got some stuff on our showcase. If you look wherever our showcase is, we try and keep that. We always look through the shop and try and keep that topped up with stuff that's relevant. A lot of the stuff we've got ourselves and we've done reviews on. Some of the stuff we've just put on there. So it's up to you guys if you want to go and have a look at that. We've also got our own shop that we're trying to, you know, develop and move forward with, but it's really difficult to get. It's a lot harder than it seems to get the right sort of stuff because I don't want stuff I don't believe in. Anyway, guys, so yeah, all that sort of stuff is, you know, really, really important. Guys, what's at number 2? Does anybody want me to give him a quick rundown on 10 to 1? 10 to 2. Cowboy time. Right, okay, so number 2, guys. So number 3 was food. Number 2 is, and you're not going to expect this is going to throw you out. Number 2, I've gone water. I know you all thought number 1 was going to be water, but it's not. Number 2 is water. Look what's happened in the UK the last month. You know what? Look what's constantly happening in the UK. Our water supply is the most vulnerable yet indispensable thing that we have. You know, we've got what was it? Devon Water? Was it Devon Water with the outbreak? And they were basically telling people to drink poo. That's what the water company said. They said, look, just boil it. Just boil it, you'll be fine. If I lived there, I'd be saying, no. Stop making me drink poo. Get the poo out of the water. That's what I pay you for. The problem with the water companies is when the government sold these water companies, guys, so they sold them off to private companies because private companies can operate things a lot better than the government. I'm going to caveat this. As long as there's competition. Privatization without competition isn't privatization, it's socialism, or you know, it's the literal definition of socialism. Communism, sorry. So what happened is when the government sold off the water companies, they said, right, so you've got you invest in our water company, you're always going to be able to sell that for the minimum what you paid for it. You don't have to invest in the infrastructure, and you've got a market that can't choose another provider. Guys, it's literally the way the water system is managed in the UK. It's literally they don't have. There's no incentive for these guys to give a better product because they're not going to get any more money, so they don't invest. They pay their shareholders huge payouts. I found out that 18% of just listen to this, guys. 18% of the UK's water companies are owned by somebody we don't know. Basically, they don't know who owns 18% of our water companies.
That's terrifying.
How? Who owns it? Decepticons? The Martians? Who owns that 18%? It's wild, guys, all right? So wherever you have a situation where you have privatization without competition, it just goes to the dogs. Look at the rail service, you know, where you have a rail service who operate a certain line, a certain track, a certain area, and nobody else is allowed in. Prices go up, service goes down. Every time. Look at the water. Anyway, guys, so sorry, I'm digressing. I'm ranting about this. So, number 2, water. So, reservoirs, rivers, water pipes, pumping stations, sewage stations, infrastructure. Now, the reason I've got this a lot higher than gas and electric is because it's a lot easier to attack. You think about it, guys, all right? If you've got a still saw or something and you're cutting into a gas pipe, you've got the risk of that blowing up. You have. If you've got the still saw and you're cutting into an electric cable, you've got a risk of being electrocuted. With a water pipe...
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Guys, I want to do an aliens video. It's crop circle. It's crop circle season. Circle season? It's crop circle season. There's loads happening with aliens at the moment, but we can't do videos on aliens because there's too much stuff happening. I think it could be aliens. But yeah, so think about your water structure and your water system. What did we say? Reservoirs, rivers, water pipes, pumping stations, sewage stations, your whole infrastructure. Unlike gas and electric, if you hit that with a still saw, your water pipes and your pumps and your stations, the worst you're gonna get is water in your face. So they're really easy targets. They're really vulnerable, and a lot of these water systems, they're 50, 60, 70, some of them are even older. And that's why when one of these pipes gets burst or something happens to it, it's very hard to replace because you have to replace the whole thing. So you can imagine if somebody, I don't know, took a piece of 100-year-old pipe out, just took the pipe out. If they can't replace that pipe, how are they going to reconnect it? They can't. They have to do the whole thing. Like with the pumping stations, if you've got a really old pump and that company's gone out of business, or the company that supplies parts to that company's gone out of business, which a lot of them do, you destroy that pumping station and the whole water system's down. You've got the added Brucey bonus then of being able to infect these water supplies. And again, the water companies are doing a good enough job themselves, but these are all things that are very vulnerable to criminal gangs. Now, number 1. So this is the top one, guys, okay? I've got cyber attack, because cyber attacks can affect all of the previous. I think it was last week we saw a cyber attack on one of the hospitals. It was a ransomware.
So the NHS, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, and again, so that is, what numbers is it? That is number 5 on my list, and obviously number 1. So basically, criminal gangs now, they'll go in, and a lot of this ransomware originates from North Korea. Not always, and a lot of the time it doesn't really matter because you can never really trace it. But normally it comes from North Korea because North Korea have a lot of this, guys, and a lot of it comes from North Korea. But it could have been anywhere. The reality is we don't know. So what will happen is all the files will be locked. And then they'll say, right, give us, I don't know, 100 million, whatever, £100 million, £1 million, £50, whatever. Give us some money and we'll unlock your files. Now, the way that they get into these systems goes back to number 8 on my list, local government. They could just give somebody from local government a USB stick and say, hey, mate, can you just put that USB stick in your computer? And that's it then. The computer is infected. Whoever owned that virus that they infected the computer with then has control of the computer. It's absolutely insane, guys. All right, go on, Sarah.
Starry's put, do you think cyber attack could take out the banks, so no online banking and cashless stuff?
Oh God, absolutely. That is, so let me I've got that on here. I will come to that. So yeah, answer to your question, yes, that's gold standard. That's what all cyber attacks are trying to do.
M77, is bottled water safe? I've been buying since you said about water.
Yeah, I'd say bottled water is... Yeah, I'd say it is safe. Yeah, I'd say bottled water is safe. I think it's... Yeah. But, you had the incidents, didn't you, with... I think it was Nestle. There was just... Guys, I don't know what it was, and I don't want to give fake news or there was something with Nestle. I think Nestle had some sort of contamination in their water. I may be wrong.
Or they were just giving us tap water with that.
Was it tap water?
Something like that. It weren't what it was meant to be.
Anyway, but yeah, I'd say bottled water is safer, than tap water at the moment. But everybody's situation is different. In the sense that when I go to my friend's house in Ukraine, he has his own well. He pumps the water out of his own well. It goes through this big filter thing. Then it goes through 3 little filters. And honestly, when after I've been to his house for a while and I come back to the UK and I drink tap water, it just feels dirty. And the water that comes out of this, that he gets out of the ground, it just really it just tastes pure.
Do you think we will see violence on the streets towards the UK residents?
I'd say you see that already. Yeah, you see that already, don't you? Is that not a thing already? I mean, yeah, I absolutely. My number 10 on my top 10 list, what we're going through now, was increased violence. What was it? Increased crime around big cities. So yeah, 100% you would see that, and that would be by these criminal gangs, that are paid for by foreign agents. They're just paid to go and basically do crime in streets, and that obviously puts a stress on the police. It puts stress on the services. They can't react to other crimes. They can't react to other things, and it just creates this cauldron of chaos that's coming. Anyway, guys, let me continue about cyber attack a little bit. So cyber attacks, they'll affect everything. So they affect all the last 10 that I've just said. 9, sorry. They affect the last 9 that I've just said. So you're looking at here, these would be done, a big one would be done pre-attack. So you'd want to take down people's communication systems and the internet before you did a big attack. They'd be aiming at the government, NHS, financial institutes. Most of these cyber attacks do try and get your finances, and they're trying to start a bank run. Obviously, there's different other little things, but just look at the most recent one, the malware. They were asking for money, so they're always going after finances at some point. If they gave them money, they would no doubt look where that money came from. They would then try and target that. How long have we got?
You've done your hour because I've just had to do that verification thing where I have to move jigsaw.
Ah, right, guys, yeah. Cyber attacks. So that affects everything, guys. But the main thing people are looking for with cyber attacks, they're trying to start a bank run. They're trying to cause a bank run in such that, everybody tries to take their money out of the banks. The banks don't have enough money to pay everyone. The people at the front of the queue get their money. The people at the back of the queue, they say, oh, sorry, your money, there's no more money left. So then everybody in the other back who's got banks with other people, they all start to do it. The financial system crashes. There's no money for guns, no money for tanks, and we're all sitting ducks. Guys, it's been a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you for you guys who just subscribed. If you've not subscribed, subscribe already. If you guys are watching this on our other platform, well done for sticking to the end. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
At some point.